All right, Tom. Welcome to Science Expeditions. And we will be turning the time over to you in the greenhouse atop the residence hall.
Hello, everyone. We are broadcasting live here from Leopold Hall, the only residential greenhouse on top of a residence hall in the world. And so the plan for today is going to be a brief tour of the place, what the facility is like, what we grow here, who uses it. And then we also have two wonderful student staff members here above my shoulder here. And they will be leading some demos on seed starting and repotting. And so first, you're with me, and so I'm going to flip my camera around so you can see the greenhouse. All right, so here we are. So it is a 1,000 square foot greenhouse. It is a lean-to style, so you can kind of see it's a kind of a triangular prism. And I'm just walking down the length of it all so you can get a nice overview of what it's like. And so we have 170 folks living in the building. On the top two floors are a learning community of 95 residents, and they are part of a learning community called Greenhouse, and that community is centered around sustainability. And part of how they enact the mission of sustainability is operating this greenhouse. So it is open to them 24/7. It is their greenhouse. My job as the greenhouse manager here is just to keep it happy and healthy and safe for everyone, and buy materials, sweep up, and keep things nice and tidy and successful. So the students who live here use this space for projects, for class research, for hobbies, for recreation. And so here I'm kind of standing in the potting up area where there's all these materials. You can see Sam and Lily there waiting for their demo time. And so I'll walk up and down once again and just talk about a couple of the plants growing here, because this is, again, for the 95 students that live here. And so they generally grow three types of plants. And so they grow plants that live here year after year. So here's an example of one of these. This is an enormous aloe with a flamingo in it, because flamingos are fun. And this aloe was donated to our community by a former resident who was himself donated it by his fifth grade science teacher. And so if you live here, you know, you can have a long-term home for an enormous aloe like that. And it can live here year after year after year. We have one jade plant over here that we have dedicated to our only resident who's lived 5 years consecutively with us. Joel, if you're tuning in, this is your jade and how your jade is looking. The other types of plants students grow here are kind of annuals. We have a gardening class. And so in the spring, some students get to enroll in a gardening class, and they grow annuals, mainly vegetables, some fruit seedlings, some nut clones, and some flowers too. And so they grow a couple thousand vegetable transplants and have them go out to our farm out in Eagle Heights. And our farm was recently, this is a table full of about 1,500 onions and leeks. So I'll give you a nice bird's eye view. And it might look a little strange because we have pink LED lights above this table. But our farm out in Eagle Heights was recently spotlighted in the PBS Garden Expo. So I believe you can still access that online and look for the COVID-19 mutual aid garden. So that was created by and for students to grow vegetables over last summer, and it's going to happen again this summer. So if you're in the Eagle Heights area of campus, stop by the COVID-19 mutual aid garden. So here's one thing that students learn in this class is when a plant dies, it can be okay and you can just restart. So in this case, this tray had some extreme drought stress. So part of learning how to operate this greenhouse is how much different a greenhouse is to a windowsill, that everything happens much, much more quickly in this greenhouse. So for example, these seedlings are barely over a month old, and they're already close to being able to transplant outside. But since everything happens a lot quicker, you can run into issues like this, where you have a plant that droughts severely, dies, but it's a learning experience. This is a teaching and learning greenhouse, and so you can just reseed it. And there's another brassica. This is a bell star broccoli germinating up for that. Ooh, we've got some questions. Lily will relay some questions here.
So the first one was about like the aisle width versus the bench width. Is there like a reason that the aisles are so thin? Is that for more plants? Is there a standard width for the aisles? What about?
Oh, excellent question. Here, let me swap around so you can all see. So here we go. So yeah, we're in a awesome question. You're speaking my language. So we're in a peninsular bench pattern. So what that means is they just jut out from the wall. Oh, hello. Camera's getting a little floppy on us. Let's see if we can regain this. All right, we're back. Yeah, so we're in a peninsular pattern here, you can see. And so they're just jutting out from the wall. And so the spacing is about the same width as a normal bench. And that's really just for easy access for a student here. And then the benches are 3 feet wide. And that's mainly so you can easily go across them. Like you can reach across them, and you can work fairly across them. All right, we're back with a good camera here. Yeah, so you can have a wider bench, you can have a narrower bench. It's really up to you to decide, and we're pretty happy with this. It's easy to get in and around, walk in and around your benches. You do want to access all of your benches from basically 3 sides or every side, so there's not kind of dead zones. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah. Second one was just about the pink and red lights and why they might be pink and red and not any other color.
Excellent question. So yeah, we have multiple spectra of lights in here. So this one is kind of a white dominant one. So it's known kind of in the business as a full spectrum LED, giving you a full white light. LED technology is quite new in the greenhouse industry, and in fact, the first plants grown under LEDs happened here on campus, here at UW in 1986. Ted Tibbetts was the lead investigator on that, and later that year they were grown in space. So UW has an enormous legacy with growing plants under LEDs, and so we have some more ones that are more of a pink or a red and blue dominant hue or spectra. But still fairly white. And so if we go all the way over here, this is very dominant pink, red, and blue. And those are mainly the wavelengths that plants need. Plants need a balanced diet of light. But since we're in a greenhouse, they can get broad spectrum lights, broad spectrum light from the sun in here. And so we're just supplementing with pinks, reds, and some whites. If you're growing plants in a growth chamber where they don't have access to the sun, you definitely want to be more particular about what types of spectra you're feeding your plants. More questions?
No, those were the ones right now.
All right, well, keep your questions coming. We're going to switch over to a demo now on how to start seedlings. So we have some very nice young seedlings in here, and so here's a few of them. So here's some nice broccoli, kale, and cabbage seedlings. So it's that time of year. And so we're going to switch over to Sam Woods. Sam Woods, a student staff member here. He used to live here. Now he works here as a student staff member, and he's going to lead you through how to start seedlings in the lethal greenhouse.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tom. Like you said, spring is here, summer is close approaching. So a lot of people are thinking about what they're going to do in their gardens in summer. So we thought that a little seed starting activity would be great. So the first thing to touch on when we're starting seeds is that you're going to want to put them in a tray if you are seed starting indoors. You can either have one with holes or one without holes. This really depends on how you want to water your seedlings. If you're just going to water from a top, like a normal watering regimen, you'd use the one with holes, obviously. But if you want to consider something like bottom watering or using different cloths, you can use the unholed ones. Some people call them holy and unholy. You get to do what you want. I think that's a funny name, but that's all it is. So we're just going to use this one with the holes for this demonstration. And then we're going to use, you can use, depending on your seeds, different varieties and different number of cell inserts. This one is a 72 cell insert. They come in all varieties, 96 and then bigger from there. So you get that in there. And we have our germination mix. This is a bit thinner and a bit less dense and woody than a normal potting mix. It also is without any like dirt soil, so it's very pure and is a thinner grit. So before we can put this into our tray, we need to get it wet. That's one of the biggest things for our germination is we want to plant everything into some damp soil. We want it to be damp. Keyword is damp, not wet, not leaky, not dry like the Sahara Desert, but a little damp. So I'm just going to do it a little bit. We kind of like car prepared this, so I don't have to do as much as I normally would. But once we get that, we can use this giant fun spoon like we're in the kitchen and just get it all mixed in. If you're doing like a lot like we have in this today, the bottom is obviously going to get really dry and the top is going to get wet. So make sure if you are doing this in big quantities, that you really get the bottom. Sometimes I just get impatient with the spoon and you just got to go in with your hands. But there we have it pretty well combined. And the sign that you have it done is that when you squeeze it together, it should kind of like clump up and hold its shape like this, but it's not wet. See, there's no water coming out of it. It just keeps its shape and we can like crumble it back. So that's how you know when it's wet enough. It should not like be juicy. Do not make it be juicy, please. So then we can get started on filling up our trays. There's really no rhyme or reason to this. We're just gonna fill it up. You can use different tools. I just like using my hands. We can fill it up about halfway, and then we can get in some of our fertilizer and go from there. So another tip for this is make sure you get your edges and your corners because they're often forgotten. And nobody likes to be left out. So let's make sure we get everyone half full. You can even just do it kind of like rough like this. Some of them are going to be a little full. And then once we have something semi good looking, let me just get this corner. You can just like slam it down a little bit. And then we get about halfway full. Then we can get our fertilizer. Right now we are using Nutricoat Total 13, 11, 11. We have a bunch of different fertilizers in this greenhouse. We have vegan, we have all natural, and then we have Nutricoat, which is not natural. All different kinds, they all work. I just like this one because they're little spheres and I think they're cute looking. So for each cell, we're going to add an eighth of a teaspoon. We have this handy dandy scoop. And we can just go in. For the sake of the demonstration, I'm not going to do every single one, but I will do like the first row, get a little sprinkle in. Think about how great these plants are going to be because you're giving them some fertilizer that will be slow release for all their baby life. And hopefully when you transplant them, they will be all nice and healthy, fed, and ready to take on the natural elements. So once we have our fertilizer in here, you can just go in and top it all off. Again, really no rhyme or reason, just sprinkle it in to make sure we end up with some clean spheres. Again, we're going to want to make sure we get these corners and edges. We're not pushing down, we're just like combing over it. So once we get this covered, then it comes time to probably the most important part, arguably, where you add the seed. Every seed is going to be different in how deep you need to plant it into these little cells. It's usually about 3 to 4 times the width of the seed, but if you're ever unsure, it's always great. They're always going to be on the packages that the seed comes in. They'll give you all the instructions of how deep to plant it, how far apart to plant it again when you're transplanting into the garden. So we don't have any seeds with us today, but we will plant in our little cells. And then as we're getting ready, we would water it in. Again, we have our holy cell and tray. Just like to give it a big drink so it is all ready to drink. Obviously, this is when soil is going to shrink a little bit, but it's going to keep all this good action. And this will really help the seed germinate. So once you get it pretty watered in, I like to watch the water like fill up to the top and then drain out of each cell. It's gonna look kind of gross if we're on this giant metal tray, but there you can see it running, right? That's what we want to see. And then once it's been watered in, we can use this condensation dome, germination chamber, whatever you want to call it, which will help keep in the moisture. So during the process of germination, we won't have to keep rewatering them. It will keep all the moisture in there while the seed is starting. And then once it's started, we can take the chamber off, the dome off, and then it'll be ready to keep growing. So then we can gander over this way to something we have prepared. About 5 days ago, we planted these basil seeds, and they've just come up. So this is what they'll look like. And that is how we start our seeds. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Now, Lily is up.
All right, I'm gonna use the same table. Oh, sorry. Okay. I want to get over here by the same potting mix that we used before. Whoopsies. And so I'm going to have us repot this little succulent here. A lot of times I would not necessarily use the germination mix that Sam was using before, but since there is some extra and I don't want to waste it, that's what I'm going to use today. So I have this succulent that's getting pretty big here. So I want to repot it into a larger pot. That's really nice to repot your succulents as they're getting larger. And the great thing for the residents here is a lot of times their plants grow really, really well compared to like at home at their parents' house or something, because we have all the amazing lights and the sun and just like the whole greenhouse environment makes it really nice for a lot of plants to grow in here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take some soil with my hands, or I might even scoop with this pot. Get it, part of the way full. And then kind of like before, I'm gonna slam it down a little bit, and I'm gonna kind of dig out a hole in the center in order to put this guy in. Now, I think these were relatively recently potted into this little one. So actually, not a ton of the soil is coming with me, not all of the soil is coming with me. But if you've had a succulent in a pot for a long time, it might be really root bound. And then you might want to kind of play with the bottom a little bit just to make sure that the roots can grow into the new potting mix really nicely. So I can place this into the hole here that I've already created and then push some of the potting mix right around it. I might push down the plant a little bit to make sure it stays in there and it holds. And then I can grab a little more, put it around it some more. Doesn't matter if the plant gets a little dirty. That's totally okay. And yeah, this might be even a little bit bigger than you might want to, but It'll give this one some room to grow. I would probably put this on a tray as well that can collect some of the water, and then water it and just, watch the soil, check it pretty often. The fun thing about a greenhouse is often we have to water more often than you would necessarily at home, just because things can really dry out. But one thing about a greenhouse that you do want to be careful with is sometimes stick your finger into the dirt and see how wet it is below, because the top might dry out due to it being a greenhouse, but the rest of the soil underneath might not be as dry. So you want to check and make sure you're not overwatering your plants. So yeah, that is succulent repotting, pretty easy. Some students here will also propagate plants. So I could, get one of these little bits of the jade to come off, and then I would let that dry out for a while before trying to propagate it somewhere else. I think some residents actually have some propagating ones. Over here. So this is not planned by us or anything. This is actually what some residents are doing. So you can see just a little bit is growing here, and we've actually got a bunch of roots coming out of that one. But yeah, a lot of these look very crispy, very dry. That's a good thing that it's drying out and it's starting some new ones. So that can be another way, to share plants with your friends as well is really great, especially if you get a really cool one, you want to share it with people. That can be a really great way to, hang out with your friends or keep a connection with them. So yeah, cool stuff.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lily. Do we have any questions? Yeah. All right. So yeah, this is the Leopold Hall greenhouse. It's the only residence hall or greenhouse on top of residence hall that we know of in the world. And so if you all know of a greenhouse on top of residence hall, please let us know. We'd love to connect with them. Loyola in Chicago has a greenhouse right next to a residence hall, and they're a wonderful facility there. But we are on the 4th story here in the Lakeshore neighborhood of campus. And so, yeah. All right. So I want to go down here and tell you all about a nice plant over here. So this is the old man's beard cactus. And so it is a very pretty spectacular cactus because it has these kind of really spiny looking hairs on it. And so they kind of like their eyelashes help reduce evaporation from the plant. And so it's an adaptation to kind of a strong extreme environment. And so that's one reason why we have this kind of collection of plants in here. And so students can kind of go around and look and enjoy plants and enjoy the accompaniment of plants and living with plants. And so physically, the greenhouse is all computer controlled. And so we have the main computer control system is fed from right on this white can here. That white can is like a weather station inside, and we have a weather station outside. And so they work together and feed information into our computer control system. Ooh, we've got some questions. Love the interruption. Please do. And so I'm going to flip you all around here. And here we go.
Awesome. Hello, folks. 2 questions from the chat. One was regarding the heat in the greenhouse. We were kind of touching on that, but I think the viewers would like some specifics on the temperature that we keep. And the other question was regarding cleaning and maintenance. Obviously, a greenhouse is a very messy place. So what do we do to keep the floors clean?
Oh, excellent questions. Y'all are scientists asking these questions. Everyone's a born scientist. You just have to, be able to answer or be able to ask questions and investigate them. And so the heat, yes, the heat is very important in here. And so I'm going to flip you all around once again. Apologies if anyone's getting motion sick by all the camera movement here. So we have what's known as aluminum fin tube heat. And so that runs, we're going to go under the bench. This is a rare view here in the greenhouse, is that it runs the entire perimeter of the greenhouse here. And then that is fed, we're fed by the main central campus steam line. And so the couple of power plants on campus produce steam, and then they feed hot water into the greenhouse, and it all feeds through this one pipe and heat pump there. And then you can see this aluminum fin tube is what it's called. It's kind of like radiant heat in a household. And so we have one line going around the entire perimeter of our greenhouse, down on the bottom here where my foot's pointing. And then we also have one aluminum fin tube line going down the top of the greenhouse, which seems kind of silly. Why would you heat the top of your greenhouse? Hot air rises because colder air displaces it from down below. And so we actually do this to heat the roof. If you own a home, you generally don't want to heat the roof. But here we do because we want as much sun as possible to come in. And so we heat the roof in winter to melt that snow, actually. So that's a weird oddity. And we can customize whatever temperature we want in here. That's the beauty of a computer control system, is that you can have it be whatever temperature you want. And so greenhouses are controlled environments, semi-controlled environments. And so a windowsill is a controlled environment as well. Yeah, so at night, the lowest it can get in here is about 67 Fahrenheit. That's where we have it set right now, but it can also get much hotter. So cleaning is enormous in a greenhouse. It's a very important thing. The best feature, though, in a greenhouse is floor drains. And so you can get the floor wet and it just goes through a drain and your life is wonderful. It's kind of like a kitchen in that you can get it dirty, and then as long as you clean it up afterwards, it's all good. More questions?
No, I was just saying 2 minutes left.
Oh, 2 minutes left. Oh, I thought it was a two-part question there. So we're rounding out. We only have about 2 minutes left. And so if you have questions, get them into the chat. Otherwise, this will be archived on the Science Expeditions YouTube channel. So if you're watching in the future, greetings. This is what it's like in the past. And this is one way to tour the only greenhouse on top of residence hall in the world. Normally, when we're not responding to a pandemic, we are open during Science Expeditions. We allow people into the building and they can explore this space in person. We usually open up also one other point in the year, whether it's for another field trip or for the Science Festival. And so watch out for those in the coming year, in the coming years. Otherwise, it's a secure facility. It's 170 people's homes here, and this is their greenhouse. And so one of the benefits of this virtual format is we are able to welcome people in and welcome more people in than we would normally be able to fit in here. So I appreciate your time and attention. And this is the Leopold Greenhouse on the UW-Madison campus. And I'm going to swing by and say hello to my co-stars here, Lily and Sam.
Hey, thank you all so much.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah, so find us online, and thanks for your time and attention, and on Wisconsin.